Absolutely great news for the Denver Broncos coming off a Week 14 bye. I wish this was a game of Madden and we could just sim through this week and be playing the Indianapolis Colts at a raucous Mile High next Sunday, but we can't. The Broncos have some good news coming out of the bye week. We're going to break it all down and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me and the YouTube algorithm out a ton if you would like and subscribe. So the first massive piece of big news is that we have learned more than ever that coaching in the NFL matters, and that having the second highest paid coach in all of professional sports, giving a first and a second round draft pick was absolutely worth it because Sean Payton has this team punching way above its weight class. And one of the areas where you really can see how great a coach is how they perform off of a bye. It was legendary to hear how good Andy Reid is off of a bye, or Bill Belichick. Well, Sean Payton is right nipping at their heels. Even thinking about last year's 5-game win streak that we were on, the toughest game of that whole thing was going up and beating the streak, or breaking the streak of how many consecutive times we had lost to the Buffalo Bills. And despite the fact that they had a players-only meeting, they had circled their wagons like the Buffalo Bills do, we went in and we eked out a victory because Sean Payton is that good off of a bye week. So I think looking here at it, just in general, Sean Payton is, as you would say, nails after the bye week, that he is 10-6 off of a bye. 62% winning percentage, which I think is fantastic, especially knowing that he is going up against a first-time head coach in Shane Steichen. And even just checking out Colts Reddit, like, no one is thrilled about Shane Steichen. No one has the faith in Shane Steichen that we have in Sean Payton. And then I think the other big difference, other than just that, like, we have a great coach, we also have a quarterback who can throw and run the ball. And taking a look here at just what Anthony Richardson does well, he is an elite athlete, but that's basically what he does. You do not have any fear in you if you say Anthony Richardson is going to be throwing the ball. So the exact same thing, I think the exact same strategy we had with the Baltimore Ravens, which is like, hey, let's bottle up and stop the run and make Lamar Jackson beat us through the air. The difference is that Anthony Richardson is nowhere near the thrower of the ball that Lamar Jackson is. Now, he could develop into that in several years. Like, there was a while where Lamar Jackson couldn't beat teams like that, which is why we tried him in that way. But if you take a look at some of the advanced analytics, he just does not have, I even just type in Anthony Richardson PFF, and you'll see he is the least accurate quarterback in the entire NFL. And like, even his overall grade, he's 41st out of 65 quarterbacks who've been tested in their overall grade. So not even like Joe Flacco was better than him, which is why Joe Flacco got starts over him this year when he was healthy. You take a look at his passing grade, 39 quarterbacks are better than him. His rushing grade, actually some quarterbacks, I guess this is average percentage, but he is a great runner of the ball. And that is what should scare you. So I envision the Denver Broncos coming out and trying to play a lot like we did against the Baltimore Ravens, although I think this time it will work. Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson are a scary backfield to have together, but I think we will stop the run just like we've stopped the run all this year. We've stopped Bijan Robinson. We held Derrick Henry to 22 yards in that first half, and that wasn't working, and so we switched our strategy. But I trust that the bye week is used for self-scouting, and I don't think anyone will be better at that than Sean Payton. And so Sean Payton all week is going to be looking at, what does Bo Nix do well, and how can I get him into more of those situations? And what does he not do well, and how can I keep him out of those situations? And conversely, that's exactly what Vance Joseph is going to be doing. Like, hey, when is my defense just clicking on all cylinders, and when are they not? I also think that having a week of seeing how Levi Wallace performed as our option with Riley Moss out, if Riley Moss is still out after this bye week, which that's going to be something we monitor very, very closely, I would think that we have a better plan B than Levi Wallace. I think Chris Abrams-Drain will be up to the task. I think we'll have several different options there to throw at it because we've been able to noodle on it all during the bye week. And I just think, man, you have one of the highest paid coaching staffs in all of pro football here, crunching film, getting ready for this. And I think it's just going to be a fantastic thing to come out to. I also think, like, looking, while we only have a 2-game lead on the Colts, looking at their wins, there's none of these wins that you're like, oh, that's super impressive. Like, obviously beating the Steelers, that's an impressive win, but there's some losses on here that really stand out to you. And I don't think there's been a time like the Broncos would not lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars this year, and they definitely wouldn't let them drop 37 points on them. They wouldn't lose. I don't think they would lose this big to the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they would lose this big to the Detroit Lions. And there's no win on here. Like, you barely eke out a win against a Patriots team who intentionally is trying to do bad so that they can add more picks to help Drake May next year on the offensive line and some receiving talent. So there's no win on here that you're like, oh man, that's a scary team. And there's a lot of losses where you're like, yikes, like you barely beat the Jets. I think if we had another go at the Jets right now, it would be a much different story than when we played them in a monsoon when they had everything to play for. Whereas at this point, they'd kind of given up. Even their win against the Dolphins, they barely eked out a win, and that was with Tyler Huntley as quarterback, not even Tua Tagovailoa. He was out on that concussion. So you're looking at like, man, that's just not a great team, not a team that scares you. And just watching football all weekend, there were so many times that you hear the Denver Broncos names tossed in, and it's amazing to be a relevant team again. I was just watching, and shout out, it's Strez. We're going to do a collab later this week, I hope. But he took a screen grab of this, and I was watching it live, and like, yes, that's what I'm talking about, that the Denver Broncos have, since week 8, the top quarterback and wide receiver duo in Nix and Cortland Sutton. I think they're going to continue feasting all the way to the playoffs. It'll be the first time Cortland Sutton has been in the playoffs. He's eager and hungry to get there, and he's going to get there with Sean Payton as his coach and Bo Nix as his quarterback. I also think we're going to have used this bye week, this time of self-scouting, that Sean Payton knows that if he wants this team to make some noise in the NFL playoffs, it has to figure out this run game. And so I think he'll have solutions for how are we going to run the ball this year. And I'm eager to see what those are. Is it going to be more doing what Frankie Abbott said on here, which is like, hey, let's get more wide zone read runs with Jaleel? Is it going to be more feeding Audric up the middle? Are we going to trust Audric more? How are we going to get this run game going? Because that's going to be a pivotal part of this team making the playoffs and then making some noise in the playoffs. Pulled this all 53 Frankie Abbott tweeted out because I think this is going to be how we make Anthony Richardson beat us, and it's going to be zone coverage. And zone coverage was driving us absolutely bonkers when it was Jameis, because Jameis can pick apart a zone coverage. Anthony Richardson cannot. So I think what we will end up doing, especially without Riley Moss, because with Riley Moss, Vance Joseph goes into a cover zero. We bring as much pressure as we can. You trust Pat Surtain and Riley Moss to hold their dudes, and then you're going to feast on the quarterback. When you have a mobile quarterback like that and you have a cover zero, if they break out of that initial blitz, you're in big trouble because it could be a house call. So I envision a lot more kind of zone coverage like we see here, and I just do not think Anthony Richardson is going to be able to pick that apart like Jameis did at times. But you saw when Jameis tried to pick it apart here, it was one of the sickest touchdowns ever with Nick Bonito there with the house call right there. So I think you'll see a lot of that, and that the Broncos are ready and have their system for that ready moving forward. But great week of content coming up. We're going to go behind enemy lines with an Indianapolis creator. I cannot even tell you how hyped I am for the NFL playoffs. Cannot wait to be there with you because we deserve this. We've never stopped believing in this team, and 8 years is way too much, and it's time to go back, and that's something we can all believe in. That'll be my last miss of the week.